Good morning. I wish I could tell you that yesterday's bombshell news would result in the beginning of the end, or even the end of Donald Trump's career in public life. I wish I could tell you that a single elected official has called on him to resign. Well, not yet, not so fast. If this were any other person, he'd be gone by now. But my friends, don't give up hope. Today, we are going to walk through just how bad the emails that both the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee revealed yesterday morning, and then the Republicans dumped on us in the afternoon. We're going to go through that in context. And I want to tell you, this ain't going away. The House was shut down without question to stop temporarily, to put on hold what is coming next. What we have seen yesterday is the tip of the iceberg. It is quite possible that finally there is a tipping point. And let me tell you, I think the Republicans in Congress have hit a wall, and they are going to vote to demand the full release of the Epstein files to them that the Department of Justice has. No doubt that will happen, assuming the vote happens next week. But remember, Donald Trump is an expert not just at changing the subject, but at lashing out when he is cornered. And I will remind you that he is apparently lining up ships near Venezuela. Donald Trump is a crazy man, and he is angry, and he has been keeping these secrets for years. And I firmly believe that either Donald Trump himself or maybe other political leaders across the globe put in the orders to have Jeff Epstein killed. I don't know if they literally said, I don't know who said he needs to be killed in prison. I don't know. But at this point, I am convinced that this cover-up is thank you, Antifa's daughter. This is the biggest cover-up, not just in U.S. political history, but in the history of the modern world. We are talking about a massive pedophile ring that Jeff Epstein maintained and used not just for his own pleasure and perversion, but to get blackmail information, compromise on numerous people. He had an incredible network tied into all manner of political leaders and business leaders, not just in the U.S., but for feck's sake, as they say, as they say in I think that's Irish, even the former prince. One prince has been taken down. The next should be the U.S. president. And again, in normal circumstances, this would be the end. I am fearful because this man literally has the nuclear football. So I don't think he's going to blow up the world, but I do think he will do all kinds of crazy shit over the next few days and next week to distract. And also, there will be tremendous pressure on all Republicans. Now that the discharge petition passed, Donald Trump is going to pressure Republicans not to vote for the full release of the Epstein files. I think he's going to fail, but you cannot imagine what he is going to try. Now, what I want to do now is start, friends, with what happened yesterday. So yesterday morning, hours before Rep. Grijalva was sworn in, And I'm going to share that with you, after we get through this. Hours before this, the Democrats on the Oversight Committee released just three emails that came from the Epstein estate. Now, remember, the Democrats on the Oversight Committee late this summer had the brilliant idea to subpoena the Jeff Epstein estate for whatever files they had related to this investigation. And they got the idea from one of the attorneys for the victims. He was on air and he said this was related to the birthday book. Someone on air was saying, Donald Trump is saying this birthday book isn't real. And the lawyer said, I think his name is Edwards for some reason. This lawyer for the victim said, why don't you subpoena the estate? So yeah, he basically said, just go ahead and do that. Bradley Edwards was his name. I was right on that. Okay, so Bradley Edwards said that. And a member of the committee said, you know what? I'm going to do that. This member didn't just learn it on air. I think she was talking to him in the green room. So they got these, they subpoenaed the estate, and bit by bit, the estate's been providing information to them. Well, yesterday we saw, including the birthday book, which we had seen before. Now we saw these three emails. Well, the House members of the committee were pissed off because these emails are very damning and very suggestive about Donald Trump's not just knowledge of what was going on, that he quote unquote knew about the girls, but also that he spent time for hours with one of the victims that the White House is now saying is Virginia Roberts Giuffre. We don't know for sure because it's redacted. Now, the Republicans were so upset about this that they dumped 20,000 files on the public saying, the Dems are cherry picking this. There's other stuff in here. Well, journals have gone through some of those or all of those. Now I think the Wall Street Journal has done a very good job organizing this. I'm going to walk you through some of that. And guess what? None of the other emails clear Donald Trump. In fact, there are some that make things even worse, which makes you wonder why they did this, why they dumped everything. Okay, so let's start, my friends, if you will, with these first emails and in context. So I've put these emails into my Epstein slideshow, but I want to go right to where they show up. Okay, so let me just get to, I don't have every single one in here. I'm trying to highlight the best ones. But first, let me share with you something because this is going to come up in the emails. You might remember this famous story in New York Magazine in 2002. This is the one that was entitled International Money Man of Mystery. Okay, I'm going to back out of this so you can see it. This was in New York Magazine. It was authored by a guy named Landon Thomas Jr. Now, this is not a name that meant anything to me until yesterday. So this is the article that comes out in 2002. And there's a quote from Donald Trump. I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. And he's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life. Part of what this story was to say, where'd this man get all his money? Right? This journalist writes this story and name drops all these people that Jeff Epstein was friends with. Now we know kind of what happens next. And we get to this point here in 2006, just adding something for you here. 2006, Donald Trump is on the Howard Stern show. He's being interviewed, and Howard Stern says, do you think you could now be banging 24-year-olds? Donald says, oh, absolutely. Howard says, would you do it? Donald says, I'd have no problem. Stern then asks Trump if he had an age limit. No, I have no age. I mean, I have age limit. I don't want to be like Congressman Foley with, 12-year-olds. 12-year-olds. So yes, his answer is children would be fine for him. After that, we have a story next, which is, hold on one second. I want to get to this. We have Jeff Epstein pleading guilty to state charges. What we know, though, is before this guilty plea in 2008, Jeff Epstein had a coterie of lawyers helping him, because what had actually happened before he pleads guilty to state charges, my friends, as you remember, that were minimized to be soliciting prostitution from a minor. That's what he pleads guilty to. Prior to that, there had been a FBI investigation into him, and there had been an indictment written up, and there were going to be much more severe federal charges made against Jeffrey Epstein. But the federal prosecutor at the time in South Florida, Alex Acosta, we'll be hearing his name again, I think you recognize it, decided to enter into a deal, a non-prosecution agreement, where Epstein would only get this state charge. All these other much more severe federal criminal charges would be dropped, not just against Epstein, but against his co-conspirators, some of whom were named. So we get, after they work out this deal in 2008, and by the way, let me just say, we know that Jeff Epstein has been a child predator for years, right? You already know this whole story. We have heard the victims talk, and I will share that with you too. We've shared it before about what he has done. So after this, and by the way, the victims, as you know, were not told about this deal. They came forward at great risk, and they were coming forward for years. In the 90s, in the mid-90s, victims would complain and the police ignored them. Finally, this man is about to face federal charges, and they get dropped. So what does he get in terms of his sentences? Well, he serves 13 months on what's called work release. So he can basically spend just 12 hours a day, 6 days a week in this minimum security county jail, which means what that meant is he pretty much just had to sleep over 6 days, and he at night, right? So, 12 hours, it could be you show up at 8 o'clock, you leave at 8 in the morning. He had his days free and one weekend day free, during which he began his abuse again. So you know that, right? We know this story. We also know what predates this, right? Let's just be clear who these victims are. These are children who had made allegations against him. Let's remember Virginia Roberts, Joffrey, who at 16 was an attendant at Mar-a-Lago Spa and was recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell to go work for Jeff Epstein. And here she is when she was still a child. I think she is 17 in this photo. And she is with Prince Andrew, who we know also raped her. This is statutory rape. We also know from Virginia Roberts' book that a high-level prime minister, who it is implied was Ehud Barak of Israel, hadn't just had sex with her when she was underage. And I think this was at the island in the near the Virgin Islands, but he also apparently battered her and choked her I don't remember all the details, but whatever happened that she thought she was going to die. So far, that man, again, whoever this prime minister is, has not faced justice. So let's just be clear. He goes to prison. He gets out after 13 months, and that's in 2009. And now we get to the first, one of the emails of the three that the Democrats shared from the estate. And let me just say something to you. Do you know that Jeff Epstein died, right, in August of 2019? I'm sure you're aware of that. You also know that Joe Biden becomes president in 2021. Did Merrick Garland or the Justice Department at that time dig into this? And why didn't they? You might know that Ghislaine Maxwell was still being prosecuted at that time, right? I don't know if the trial had happened. I don't think she had been sentenced yet. And I am wondering, her trial, let's see, Ghislaine Maxwell's trial was in 2021, but she had been indicted under the Trump administration. So this case comes forward. Her trial is in December of 2021. There was plenty of time to get records from the Epstein estate and just see how far this went. If anyone really cared about children. So let me share with you, Epstein gets out of prison in 2009. Here is this particular email that is, this is an email, I should be clear, that comes not from the first release of emails. This is something that came in the 20,000 email release. And I saw this on the Wall Street Journal's website. So this is an email from Prince Andrew. His email account says the Duke, or the Andrew, formerly known as the Duke and the Prince. This is a longer email, which I'll show you. There's something all about a journalist asking about Virginia Giuffre. So he forwards it to Ghislaine and he says, "Hey there, what's all this? I don't know anything about this. You must say. So please, this has nothing to do with me. I can't take any more of this." I'm going to show you what that was about. But obviously, they are trying to form the cover-up to turn Virginia into a liar. Now, this is the email. This is one of the emails that the Dems released, one of the three. This is in April of 2011. And the email comes from Jeffrey Epstein, his jeevacation@gmail.com to gmax1 at elimax.com. So this is from Jeff Epstein to Ghislaine, April 2nd, 2017. I'm sorry, April 2nd, 2011. My apologies. He says, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." Now, I'm not sure what this is about. What we do know is Jeff had just gotten out of prison. To me, the way I read this, I'm sorry, let me add to the stage. And Ghislaine says, "I have been thinking about that. This has been sent high priority." What he's sitting around thinking about, the dog that hasn't barked, he's thinking about why wasn't Donald Trump, there's two different possibilities of what the dog that hasn't barked means. One thing is that he hasn't ratted, that it seems weird that Donald Trump was not named as a witness against him. That's one thing the dog that hasn't barked could mean. Or it could mean, are we in trouble? Because Donald Trump knows a lot about what we've done. And then there's also this part, what does it mean that he spent time with this victim, who the White House is now saying is Virginia? Spent time with her, meaning he knows that at Jeff's mansion, that he knows that she was around a lot, or does it imply some kind of more intimate connection? We just don't know. The next thing in this email that's curious to me is what it means to say, so he's never been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. To me, the way I read this is he's thinking, was Donald Trump the guy who ratted him out? I'm 75% there, meaning I'm more than 50-50. Not just, I'm beginning to think Donald Trump dropped the dime on me, but I'm beyond just suspecting it, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'm 70% there. That is what that means to me. Maybe not to you. Now, here's another email. Now, this is one that came out yesterday in the 20,000 that the Republicans provided, thinking it would help matters. It doesn't. Let me share this with you. I'm doing these in chron order. Also, in 2011, right? When Donald Trump is a reality TV star, not running for office. Here's this email. It was from Jeff Epstein to publicist Peggy Siegel. And by the way, publicists often, not always, aren't just there to, hype your book or your movie. There are some publicists, or maybe all of them, there's some who are there to spin a story, to lie, to cover up. I mean, apparently, I'm not saying Peggy Siegel is one of them, but I have encountered some publicists who I think are exceedingly aggressive, unethical, and greedy. That's another story for another day. Not all of them, but it's a complicated profession, just like the legal profession is. Okay, so here is what Jeff Epstein said to Peggy Siegel, maybe his own publicist. He says, I think a great opportunity has arisen. Just like the headlines of a hotel maid now proven to have lied in the Strauss-Kahn case, that was Dominique Strauss-Kahn, the girl who accused Prince Andrew can also easily be proven to be a liar. I think Buckingham Palace would love it. You should task somebody to investigate the girl, and then he says the name, that has caused the king's son all this aggro, meaning aggravation. I promise you she is a fraud. You and I will be able to go to Ascot for the rest of our lives, right? The horse races. I know there is a public police report that no one has had the courage to publish, as they do not want to be seen attacking the victim. But being falsely accused will be the new headline. What is he getting at? We already know, because we've talked about Virginia Giuffre's book. They're trying to set her up. They're trying to say, because she maybe has this history of running away, who knows what this is? This is evil. And it's selfish. He's trying to help out Buckingham Palace, help out Prince Andrew, the Andrew formerly known as the Prince, by setting up Virginia Giuffre, by saying, I know it's a lie. So what he's also doing is he's lying to Peggy Siegel so she can have plausible deniability and act like, well, I didn't know my client was lying to me. Also, to stay connected. So part of what Jeff Epstein does, it's not just blackmail people, right? It's help them out, lie for them, cover up for goodies. What next? Then we have, and this is in 2014, this is an email, and I find this came up from the Republicans. I find this one really troubling. You might not be hearing about it. There are many emails exchanges between someone named Kathy Rumler and Jeff Epstein. Rumler worked in the Obama administration, and had a lot of emails with him. And this is from 2014, when Barack Obama was still in office, before Donald Trump had announced he was running. Jeff says, you need to talk to boss. Kathy says, agreed, but I need to be prepared to say yes before I talk to him. Jeff says, understood. It comes down to high risk reward, low risk reward, professional, emotional, and financial. I have no idea, you guys, what this is about. I don't know who boss is. The implication is it's Barack Obama, but who knows? Kathy responds, most girls do not have to worry about this crap. I don't know what she's talking about. She says most girls, meaning herself. Sometimes women, we refer to ourselves that way. Epstein takes the bait. Quote unquote, girls, careful. I will renew an old habit. And then he goes on to name drop. This week, Thiel, Summers, Bill Burns, Gordon Brown, Jagland, Council of Europe and Nobel Chairman, Mongolia Press, Hardeep Puri, Boris, Gates, Jabber, Qatar, Sultan Dubai, Coslin, Leon Black, Woody. You are a welcome guest at any. Also, if you think there are interesting people in town, everyone here for Climate Summit, Clinton, Security Council. Holy shit, I'm on something for next 30 minutes. I'm not sure where he was in September of 2014, but obviously he's trying to show off to all the people he is entertaining. Yeah. And then he says, she responds to him, doesn't look like you are prioritizing your schedule very effectively. How are you going to manage all of that? This is UNGA week, so the boss will be in town too. UNGA, UN, I don't know what that stands for. Oh, UN Global Assembly Week. So the boss will be in town too. That implies they're in New York. I'll be here all week. You may get sick of me. Just sat down on the train, so can't talk freely. Okay. That is not going to be good. We're going to need to know more about who is this Kathy Rumler. She was an attorney and former White House counsel. She then joined Goldman Sachs after that. I'm not sure why she had such a close relationship with Jeff Epstein. You're going to hear a lot about that, and we should. Okay, what happens next, right? That was just reminding you, this is September of 2024. Well, in 2025, less than a year later, we have Donald Trump coming down that escalator, thumbs up with Melania, announcing he is running for president. Okay, so what do we see next? I promise you I'm not going through every email, but I just want to give you the context here. This is now after Donald Trump has begun his campaign for president. We already have, I think this is around when the debates are happening in the Republican Party. It's December of 2015. And here's Michael Wolff, who is considered one of the most unethical biographers. And you can sort of see why he's like writing these biographies and also acting as a fix-it man. For Epstein, he says December 15th, 2015, he says to Epstein, I hear CNN planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in scrum afterwards. So this is at one of these debates, a CNN debate. Well, it was not asked at the debate, according to journalists I've heard who went and looked at the transcript. We don't know so far. I don't know whether it was asked in the scrum. A scrum is right after a debate when they go out on the floor in the so-called spin room. There's like a floor that is a spin room, but it's a giant room. That's what I've seen at debates. and all the reporters swarm around the candidates and shout questions at them. That's the scrum. Okay, so we have the response from Michael Wolff. Oh, I'm sorry. So they're going to ask them a question. Then Jeff says in response, if we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? So the implication is Jeff is thinking, I might want to get ahead of this. Jeff is also thinking, if we could craft a response, he doesn't know, or he's not willing to tell Michael whether he has connections to Trump, but he's thinking he might. So he wonders, what should we say? And what does Michael Wolff say in response? I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you a valuable PR, public relations, and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that, when asked, he'll say, Jeffrey is a great guy, and he's gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. Yes, people have conversations like this. They don't usually put them in email. Now you know the mindset, and we have a bit more. Okay. Now I want to share with you something utterly disgusting. This is now March of 2016. I think this is close to when Donald Trump had clinched the nomination. I remember that happened sometime in the spring of 2016. Let's see, when did Trump secure nomination? In 2016, because they had so many winner-take-all primaries. He cinched the nomination in May, but it was looking pretty good for him by March. What do we see here? This is an email from Jeffrey to Tom Barrack. Tom Barrack is someone who was part of the Trump campaign previously, and now he happens to be, get this, our ambassador to Turkey, Tom Barrack. Okay, that's who he is right now. He's had some other shady issues in the past. We can get to those, but let me say what he wrote. Okay, so this is Jeff to Tom. Hope you are well. Photos look good. FYI, I receive many calls a week about both Donald, and then someone's redacted, Marla, beauty contests, Mar-a-Lago, etc., and Clinton from reporters. Less so recently with Clinton, but my answers are always, I have nothing to say, or I try to ignore altogether. A few times I have been ambushed on the street with questions, but I am more careful now. Why is he saying this to Tom? Because Tom, I believe at that time, was not just close to Donald, but he was working on the campaign. If I recall correctly, he even spoke, I thought maybe he was a senior advisor to the 2016 presidential campaign, and he was chair of the inaugural committee. This is the guy Epstein is communicating with. Epstein is tipping off the financial advisor to the Trump campaign, saying, hey, folks are sniffing around what Donald's connection is to me, and also any kind of sexual harassment issues around these beauty contests. He tells Tom Barrack. What does Tom say in response? Hope you're good. Let's catch up. And then Jeff says, send photos of you and child make me smile. What the hell is that? What child are they talking about? Tom's older. He didn't have children. Are they talking about a young woman or actually a child? A teenager he is dating? I have no idea. That's creepy as hell. And this man is our ambassador to Turkey. Now, Michael Wolff is still at it. So these emails, everything you've seen other than the 2011 one that I showed you involving between Ghislaine and Epstein, this is all part of the dump the Republicans did when they claimed there was cherry picking. This shit doesn't sound good for anybody. This sounds like a major cover-up. Obviously, the Department of Justice has these too, and worse. And they've been covering this up. Okay, what else do we have, guys? This is October 2016, 29th. This is right before the election. It comes from Michael Wolff, high priority to Jeff Epstein, right? And it says, there's an opportunity to come forward this week and talk about Trump in such a way that you could garner great sympathy and help finish him. Interested? Okay. What was happening October 29th, 2016? When did the Hollywood Access video come out? Do you remember that? Do you remember when that came out? The Hollywood Access video had come out October 7th. We are in that window of time still, right before the election. And we have Wolff saying, do you want to finish him? We don't see an answer in the files. What do I have for you next? I promise I'm going to get to the end of this. This was also released by the Republicans. So this says you have, this is now in 2017. Donald Trump has been elected. And Alex Acosta is being nominated, if I recall correctly, for labor secretary. And Jeff Epstein, remember, Alex Acosta is the guy who gave him the sweetheart deal and backed off the federal charges. Epstein sends to his own lawyer, Roy Black, who will represent Acosta at hearings, because you always have a lawyer, or you usually have a lawyer. And it says, Roy says he will be by himself, perhaps a Trump administration aide to assist and accompany him. Why might that be of interest to Jeff? Because the whole Epstein deal could come out. Now, we have fall of 2017. By the way, Roy Black is no longer alive. This other person, Connolly, the author, is also no longer alive. He was co-author of a book about Epstein that was called, you may have read it, Filthy Rich, a powerful billionaire, the sex scandal that undid him, and all the justice that money can buy, the shocking true story of Jeff Epstein. It came out in October of 2016. He was a co-author with James Patterson. So the book has already come out, and we have Connolly. It had come out a year before. We have Connolly. And by the way, it came out before Donald Trump was elected, but I guess that didn't change much. We have this email from Landon Thomas. Remember that name from earlier in the show? Landon Thomas was the author of the article from 2002 where Donald Trump is quoting as saying that Jeffrey likes women as much as I do, and many of them on the younger side. He was writing at that time in 2002, that piece for New York Magazine, The International Man of Mystery. Landon Thomas, who obviously has Epstein as a source, has also a very weird relationship with him. He texts and he says, Landon sends to Epstein, he is digging around again. Sorry, the subject was, got another call from Connolly. Landon says, he is digging around again. Not clear if it's another book or expanded paperback version. Was asking me all sorts of questions about why you hired Ken Starr. I told him I had no idea. I think he is doing some Trump-related digging too, anyway, for what it's worth. Guys, in 2017, when Landon Thomas sent that to Epstein, he was a reporter for the New York Times. He is tipping off Epstein that another journalist is digging around for information, specifically this question about why Epstein hired Ken Starr. Ken Starr was part of that legal team with Jeff Epstein to get those charges dropped. I'm sorry, with Dershowitz to get those charges dropped. Landon Thomas sends that email. What I'm going to tell you is later, that was 2017. In 2019, when Jeff Epstein is charged in July of 2019, he's arrested, he's charged, he's not given bail, right? Before he dies in prison, or he was killed, I believe, at this point, if I said before, or they let him commit suicide, I'm now beginning to think he was actually murdered because, everything. But Landon Thomas reveals he wants to be, he thinks he'd be a good person to write a story about Epstein at that point, because Epstein has been a source for a while. And then he reveals to the New York Times that Jeff Epstein, years before, had given like $20,000 to Landon Thomas Jr.'s favorite charity. Well, this comes out in an NPR story. I swear to God, a story comes out August of 2019. And it was called A Dead Cat, a Lawyer's Call, and a 5-Figure Donation, How Media Fell Short on Epstein. And more on that in a moment. So this guy working for the New York Times in 2017 could have blown the lid off Trump's relationship with Epstein, but didn't fucking do it. And when the New York Times fired him, I didn't see any follow-up from them. Now, I'm not going to trash the New York Times. Amazing reporters who work there. This is really fucked up. Okay. Now, what do I have next for you? This is one of the many, many emails from Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary. That Larry Summers, former president of Harvard University. Yes, that Larry Summers, to Jeff Epstein. And there are many of them. This one is particularly yucky, but I ask myself, why do so many powerful men maintain this relationship with Jeff Epstein, knowing what he had done before? And likely what he was doing then, because you remember, as Howard Lutnick said, he was disgusting to be around. And when he was asked, the reason why these people, not only they knew about it, but they participated, that's what Lutnick said. I shared that video clip on the show. Okay, let us look at this. Okay, this is an email from Larry Summers to Jeffrey Epstein. There's a lot here about some SoftBank guy, chit-chatting. Okay, I'm just going to read this key part here. He says, DJT is world's luckiest guy in terms of opposition, economy, etc. Still think his world will collapse. right? This is fall of 2017 when the whole Russia and Comey investigation has begun. I'm trying to figure why American elite think if you murder your baby by beating and abandonment, it must be irrelevant to your admission to Harvard, but hit on a few women 10 years ago and can't work at a network or think tank. Do not repeat this insight. What? First of all, do not repeat this insight. It's just so great, and that's become a meme. But he's actually complaining to Jeff Epstein about political correctness. And hitting on a woman 10 years ago, and you can't work for a network, he's complaining about the Me Too movement with Jeff Epstein. Okay. What else do I have? Jeff Epstein now, this is June of 2018. This came out of the Republican drop, and this blew my mind, blew my flippin' mind. This is the Russia connection. Listen up. Okay. It's from Epstein to some guy, Thorbjørn Jagland, and he says, Thorbjørn Jagland, and I would like to know who that person is. Thorbjørn, I've read the email. Jagland was a Norwegian politician from the Labour Party. And he, let's start at the beginning. The first email, the very bottom, from Epstein to this Norwegian labor secretary says, remember, Norway is very close to Russia. Okay. If you look at the flippin' map and go over the top, this is June 2018. I think you might suggest to Putin that Lavrov can get insight on talking to me. Vitaly Churkin used to, but he died. Vitaly Churkin was the former permanent representative of Russia to the United Nations. This guy, this is a guy who died in February of 2017. He died suddenly in New York City. They withheld, the State Department told New York's chief medical examiner not to disclose how he died. He apparently, they said, had a heart attack. Okay. What does this mean? I need to unpack this with you. This has not gotten enough attention. This freaks me out, or it confirms everything we knew. So again, June 2018, Epstein speaking with, in an email, a Norwegian politician from the Labour Party saying, I think you might suggest to Putin that Lavrov, obviously Putin's right-hand man, can get insight on talking to me. Vitaly Churkin used to, but he died. So what Epstein is saying is that he used to be in communication with a representative from the UN who lived in New York, right? Doesn't matter whether he's Russian intelligence or not. He's Russian government official stationed in New York that Epstein used to give insights to, presumably about anything, maybe about Trump. And he used to give these insights sometime before dude dies. So that is curious, because that is a direct line to provide compromise on Trump. Now, we have, in response from Jagland, I'll meet Lavrov's assistant on Monday and will suggest Thank you for a lovely evening. I come to you on high level week. And then, in case you wondered, the follow up we get from Epstein, Churkin was great. He understood Trump after our conversations. It is not complex. He must be seen to get something. He must be seen to get something. It is that simple. What else did Epstein tell Churkin? I mean, we all know this, but that Trump needs to believe that he's winning. But I want to point out to you, I mean, this is June of 2018, Trump administration. This is, while the Mueller report is still cooking, this is, I mean, I don't even know how to even say this to you, but you don't think Epstein hinted to the Russians the dirt he had on Trump? Why wouldn't he dangle that out there? Were they paying him? I mean, this is crazy shit, you guys. In this email is one of the ones the Republicans released. Okay, almost at the end of this, and I'm going to try to end the show on time. We have tomorrow also. There is so much more to unpack, and there will be by tomorrow. We get then, right after that, right? So I was talking to you, this was June of 2018. In November, we get Julie Brown in the Miami Herald with the series. This is talking about Alex Acosta and Jeff Epstein, and she blows open the story of Epstein that has been laying dormant. Now, that happens, like I told you, in November 2018. It is thanks to Julie K. Brown that all of a sudden the now Trump administration decides to go after Epstein. Now, I don't know why. You would have thought they wouldn't have gone after Epstein because he had so much dirt on Trump and other people. But maybe Trump got wind of the fact that Epstein was turning on him. We don't know. The story comes out, it's really bad in the Miami Herald. And we get this. The story comes out in November, the series, and we get Epstein emailing Michael Wolff. And it says victim, it's redacted, Mar-a-Lago, another redaction. Trump said he asked me to resign. Never a member ever. Of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. So what was coming out in these stories is Trump was saying, and he's consistently said this, that he was angry that Ghislaine was recruiting from Mar-a-Lago and told her to stop. So we've heard Trump say that, and now we've heard Epstein say that. Trump thinks that's exculpatory, makes him look good. It doesn't. It means that he knew about it, right? What Epstein is saying here, which I'm not sure is credible, is I was never actually a member of the club of Mar-a-Lago. What he might mean is he never paid dues. He may have been listed on the rolls, but he may not have known that. But what people have said is he was still listed on the rolls of Mar-a-Lago many years later, even after 2005, even after, I think, the conviction. I'm not sure, but what Epstein is saying is he never paid to be a member, essentially. What do we have next? This is the article about that Landon Thomas. This is someone who could have blown the lid off this. There are so many men who knew what was going on, and this guy could have had the story of a lifetime. Why didn't he? So let me just say to you, I want to share with you this, because Landon Thomas Jr. has a lot of explaining to do, as does the New York Times. Let me share this with you. Let me step out of this because I think this is incredibly damning. This is the piece I was mentioning from NPR. So this came out in August of 2022. And This is right after Epstein apparently killed himself or was murdered. And we get this, they go through the story about how the editor of Vanity Fair, Graydon Carter, quashed the most damning aspects of a story that was being written, and it would have helped victims. But what here we have, this is about Julie K. Brown's investigative series in 2018. And we get to, I'm going to get to not the Vanity Fair piece. This is Graydon Carter, who pushed back on Vicky Ward because of under a lot of pressure, because she wanted to write about what he was actually doing with young girls. It was called The Talented Mr. Epstein, and she did not report Annie Farmer's claims of abuse. And she should have been able to, but Carter didn't let her. This was Maria and Annie Farmer. They had reported this in 2002. They spoke with her in 2002, and she did not publish it. This is, we've already heard Annie Farmer and Maria talk about their abuse previously. So let me just get to the New York Times guy. We have ABC News. We have so many reporters. Let's get to the New York. Here's the New York Times. Okay. So this is a piece from in 2018. This is a piece from 2019. So they're saying in 2018. So right around the time, I think I told you that that Landon Thomas Jr. Was being approached when Epstein was arrested. It was actually after Julie K. Brown. Well, let me just go through this. So last August, reporters at the New York Times and other publications received words that Tesla founder Elon Musk was relying on Jeff Epstein to advise him, and they were considering hiring him as a board chair. So they had James Stewart from the New York Times, a business columnist, write it, but he wasn't the first choice. So this is in 2018, before this extra news from Julie K. Brown about Epstein drops. Landon Thomas was asked to do it. And Landon Thomas, remember, he'd written this piece in 2002 in New York Magazine, and then he joined the New York Times. So 16 years later, he's had this relationship with Epstein as a source. But then before they asked him to write it, when they asked him to write about it, Landon said, well, Epstein and Thomas were so close. Let me read this. That Thomas had solicited a $30,000 contribution from Epstein for a Harlem cultural center. And Thomas confided to the Times that Epstein wasn't just a source, that he was just a source of information, not someone he would report on or investigate. So he said he wouldn't investigate him. He just used him as a source. The New York Times fired him and said this was not okay. However, it wasn't true. And the donation came in 2017. However, what we find out is, remember when Thomas wrote the piece for New York Magazine where Donald Trump is quoted, right? The one we've talked about saying Jeff likes young girls. Thomas wrote a piece in 2018, and this was in the New York Times. Okay, he had written this piece. He traveled to Epstein's private island in the Virgin Islands, and this piece ran before Epstein ends up going to prison. So it says, and this is kind of disgusting, as his legal troubles deepened, Mr. Epstein gazed at the azure sea and the lush hills of St. Thomas in the distance, poked at a lunch of crab and rare steak prepared by his personal chef, and tried to explain how his life had taken such a turn, Thomas wrote. He likened himself to Gulliver, shipwrecked among the diminutive denizens of Lilliput. Really, people? And this is what's so upsetting. The article, this is NPR reporting, that Landon's article presented Epstein as someone who solicited prostitutes, not committed sex crimes against minors. However, federal agents had identified by that time several victims. So Landon Thomas Jr. wrote the piece in New York Magazine about Epstein. and wrote this piece in New York Times in 2008, then gets Epstein somehow to give $30,000 to his charity. Really? Really? And we showed you earlier that Thomas was warning Epstein that Connolly was sniffing around in 2017 to know about Trump. Landon Thomas Jr. had the flippin' story of a lifetime. Why in the world wouldn't he put it out there? What did Epstein have on him? Or did he just believe the bullshit that he wasn't running a pedophile ring? I got a few more minutes. Then, of course, in 2019, shortly after that, Epstein is due in court over sex trafficking charges. Then the apparent suicide, right? Then it's not true that Bill Barr visited him in prison. That's not true, but I do believe it's very weird. 2020, remember when Trump is interviewed by Jonathan Swan? He says Jeffrey Epstein may have been killed, but wished Ghislaine Maxwell well. Okay. Guys, like I began, this should be the story of the century. Now, I want to share with you a link to the Wall Street Journal's page where you can look more deeply into this. I'm going to walk you through this, and then the show will end. I'm going to have more commentary tomorrow, more video tomorrow, but I felt like you should see this. Now, let's go and share this screen. Here's where you can look. This is the Wall Street Journal. It says, read Jeffrey Epstein emails released on Wednesday. Congress released thousands of documents turned over by Epstein estate. Here, Democrats, the three that they shared was the dog that hasn't barked, right? I'm sorry. The one was a dog that hasn't barked, which I shared with you. But what I want to show you is how this is organized. There's a table of contents here. You can see the emails with Ghislaine, with Prince Andrew, with the Peggy Siegel, the publicist, with Kathy Rumler, who worked before Obama, with Michael Wolff, the journalist and biographer and fixer, with Tom Barrack, who is our current ambassador to Turkey. We've got these other people, Peter Mandelson. Who is Peter Mandelson? I probably should know that. Holy shit. He's a member of the House of Lords in the United Kingdom. I think we also have Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary, Reed Weingarten, attorney, Roy Black, attorney, and so on and so on. We've got Steve Bannon also. More is going to be coming out about this. I'll have more to share with you tomorrow, more commentary, because I think folks are going to be sifting through this. And I think Donald Trump, which he's already freaking out about this, is going to try to do something to distract us. Buckle your seatbelts. I'm still waiting for somebody in elected office, for a lot of somebodies, to demand Donald Trump's resignation. He should be the Donald formerly known as president. That's what I have for you. There ain't no crazy town today. We've been through a hell of a lot already. See you in the morning.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub Show, where welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There was hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub Show. Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub Show. Where welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub Show.